Welcome, everybody. My name is Milad Asner. I'm a senior product manager based out of Germany and responsible for cybersecurity and GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. And beside that, I'm also a certified ethical hacker and try to help customers to secure their perimeter. What I'd like to talk to you today is around social engineering. So essentially, it's about manipulating people to do what you want them to do, which is kind of cool if you know how to do it. So how many of you already tweeted? Thank you so much for doing what I wanted you to do. So what are we going to talk about? In my session abstract, I put in some buzzwords, because last Ignite, I noticed that I haven't got accepted as a speaker. So I said, OK, let's do what I do best, which is social engineering. So I put some of the buzzwords the speaker team was looking for. So I was talking about cyber attacks, social engineering, all those scary things that's happening around the world right now. And here I am at Microsoft Ignite in Orlando this year, speaking, and have the privilege to talk with all of you about what I love to talk about, which is social engineering. What I want to do is give you a brief history around this subject. So what is the background of social engineering, how it really started? And I'm not talking about the digital age, right? I'm talking about really back in the old days, how it was. I talk about information gathering. What are the information we see as a hacker versus what are the information a consumer sees on the web? I will cover different kind of attacks, some real-world examples that are happening around the world with different exploits, different ways how hackers, or at some point even states, are trying to access certain facilities, certain areas of a company to steal data or to infiltrate their infrastructure. And then I will move into the Microsoft technology landscape, talking about the threat intelligence we have at Microsoft and some of the products that leverage the TI we put in place in order to help customers to protect, detect, and respond to those cyber attacks. And to give you an example of what just happened with my dear friend Erdal, who is, for sure, some of you attended his session yesterday on Hacker Halted. He came to me and said, oh, I want to take pictures of you. Can I have your phone? He has my phone. But the thing was, he was like, oh, yeah, can you unlock it? I'm like, you don't need that. He's like, no, I need to tweet for you. For anyone with our background, and I think some of you are in the room also, that's a big no-go. And he was kind of upset with me. He was like, no, come on, man, I'm your friend. We know each other since 6 years. I'm like, yes, but at the same time, you're also an ethical hacker. And I know you want to annoy me. So I showed him how to take pictures on my phone without unlocking it. And now he's busy taking pictures, and I think you're receiving a phone call right now. All right, so those kind of two stories around that subject, some examples. But let me give you an example on how it all started. And I love to compare social engineering with Hollywood, particularly with those three fellas. Anyone want to guess what those two pictures have in common? Right? On the left side, you have Matt Damon, George Clooney, Brad Pitt. And on the other side, you have this scary dude who's probably going to hack the whole world. They're all con mans. They're all con mans because in today's world, the con man doesn't need to look fancy anymore. He doesn't need to wear a suit, trying to impress someone, to get their information, to build trust. It's all gone. In the digital age, all I need to have is a computer connected to the internet, and I'm a con man. If you look into the American dictionary, right, it says the practical application of sociological principles to particular social problems. That's a definition of social engineering. If you look into law enforcement, Interpol, what they're saying on their website, if you go in there, it refers to the scams used by criminals to trick, deceive, and manipulate their victims. And our dear friends from the FBI, they pretty much say it in plain English. Well, it's kind of the con man in the digital age. So that's really how it all started, right? To give you an example, we all do social engineering when we hang out at night in a bar, in a club. We all do that. Doesn't matter where in the world, we all do it. We try to find something which is interesting for us. It could be a drink. It could be a nice woman, a nice man. You know, it could be anything. And then you start. You recon. You're trying to look around and see, OK, what is her or his interest, right? And then you start to talking, trying to build trust, and in order to proceed to the next level, depending on whatever that next level is for you. So we do social engineering in our everyday life. And what is important around social engineering is the very first phase, this building trust exercise. Because if you're able to build trust with anyone, they will do certain activities up to a certain level for you, right? It could be that you put pressure at one point then on that individual to get certain information that may be looking like harmless for that person, but a hacker could leverage that information later on to prepare his cyber attack. And what is important for me in this session is to give you really an understanding how a hacker or an activist group is preparing a cyber attack. Because what we typically start seeing like on all those sessions is like, OK, you got hacked, and this is what you're going to do in order to detect and respond. But I also want to give you the other perspective on what are these key steps a hacker is taking in order to start a cyber attack. Because if you know that, you can also put certain measurements in your environment to help mitigating some of those things. Now, does it mean that if you implement everything, you're secure forever? No, definitely not. Right? We live in a world where we are following this assume breach principle, which basically means there's, I can put it in the words of James Comey, the former director of the FBI. It's like there are two kinds of organizations in the world. The ones they know they have been hacked, the others they don't know. But any company, any organization has certain information that is useful or interesting for a hacker, an activist group, or at some point even a state. So the attack landscape has changed because back in the old days, hackers would try to find the vulnerability in your database server, in your directory services. They were trying hard to break into the network security stack, right? But because we live in a digital age, it got so much easier. They just send an email and ask politely for the data. And depending on that individual, they are successful at the first email or the second email. But at one point, they will be successful. And of course, some of you might say, well, you know, that sounds too easy to be true. But I will show you some real-world examples. Even happened at Microsoft. On my device, someone tried to attack me. I had a phishing email that looked similar. I will show you that and how it all happened. So bear with me for a moment. Some interesting facts around the digital age or on emails. It's based on the Verizon data breach report from 2015. It says if an attacker sends an email to 100 people in an organization, 23 people will open it, 11 people will even open the attachment, and 6 more folks will do it in the first hour. Scary. Why is it scary? Because it's so simple to prepare a phishing attack that you leverage so many information from that organization that it just looks real. Maybe not for us, because we have maybe an IT or a security background. We're IT professionals or security professionals. But definitely for the person who's in sales, the marketeers, the HR folks, they will not see the difference many times. And they will just open it because they believe what they see is valid. To give you a concrete example, today, if you go to the darknet, you can buy anything you want, right? Anything. Anything a person can desire, you have it on darknet, right? It includes from credit card information over to booking a service, to leverage a botnet, over to building an exploit, over to information gathering from certain organizations, right? You can have all of that in the darknet. So what hackers do is very simple. They crawl the web, or they purchase a service, an individual who does that for them. They gather the information on, for example, how does the average email look like for that organization. Maybe they go on LinkedIn or other professional networks in order to understand, okay, who is the head of sales? Who's the report? What is the reporting line for that individual? And maybe even if you go on Google or Bing, you will find certain attachments, right? Some examples, because someone by accident put an Excel file or a PowerPoint on the web, right? Even better, all our presentations will be on the Ignite website, right? So we know exactly how the PowerPoint master slide deck, the UI, the user interface, and everything looks like, right? So they leverage all that information, and they prepare this very sophisticated email asking to open this attachment. Maybe if it's a sales scenario, this email will include an opportunity or a lead the sales manager is supposed to look after. And at one point, they will always have this thing called, you need to enable this macro. And for whatever reason, when you see a button, people tend to like to click on it before they understand what it is about. Right? They're like, oh, there's a new button. Let's click on it. Right? Do you want to shut down? Yes or no? Well, yes, of course. Do you want to connect to a server? Yes, of course. Do you know which server it is? Not really, but it's come from my friend who is in the other sales team, so it must be true. I must need it, right? So that's how it all starts. On the other hand, there are also examples on how they leverage the physical world in order to start a social engineering attack. And one of the most famous one is Operation Stuxnet, right? If you look on this slide here, you see on the left side, the nuclear facility in Iran that got infiltrated during that operation. And really, I don't want to go into detail what happened in Stuxnet. I think we read all about it when it happened a couple of years ago. But the point is, what they did is, there was no way to get into the facility like physically because of all those security measurements they put in place. But they did something much more easier. They took those USB sticks and they throw it at the parking lot. Right? There were a couple of those USB sticks. And how many of you during Ignite got free USB sticks? Quite a few, right? How many of you just plugged it in, believed everything will be fine? All of you? Well, to be fair, I think all those USB sticks, majority, if it's not coming from a security vendor probably, should be safe. But in the case of Stuxnet, they weren't safe, right? So what happened is those professors and whatnot, they saw this USB saying, oh, well, cool, let's see what is inside. And they plugged it into their devices. And that's really how Operation Stuxnet started. That's how the hackers, or back then, like the state-sponsored attack, got into that network. And if you think that's just an exception, it's not. A couple of years ago in Germany, there's this large IT conference called CeBIT. So the same thing happened, but in that case, a security vendor, again, throw out a couple of USB sticks at the parking lot. And when you plugged it in, it basically said, you got hacked, please visit our booth. And then they sold them AV solutions. Right? Do you want to, anyone has an idea on what the percentage of returned USB sticks was? Who says like 20%? Hands up. 20? No? Nobody? 40? No? 80? Kinda? 95%. 95% of all USB sticks that have been thrown away in the parking lot came back to the booth. 95%. It's just mind-blowing. People just say, oh, it's free. It's awesome. Let's try it out. Let's see what's in. There must be like some a secret wallet of Bitcoins, you know, that I can now leverage, because that's what people do nowadays. Some more recent attacks. And when you look into those recent attacks, you see some names like barium, lead, strontium. Those are code names Microsoft use for the activist groups, right? What all those three have in common is that they leverage social engineering in order to infiltrate a company. So barium is focusing, for example, on online casinos, media agencies, ISPs, really like getting targeted attacks to those industries, while lead is more focusing on education, on university, higher education, as well as chemical and pharma companies. And the last one, which happened quite recently, was strontium, which is focused on the public sector, on military forces, as well as TV stations. And I will give you an example on how strontium also looked like in the real world. All of them leverage social engineering because we are simply living in a digital age. Now, some of you might say, OK, then we are not digitalizing. Well, OK, then you're out of business in probably 5 years from now, because digitalization is happening. But what most people tend to forget, and also when I talk with, for example, chief information security officers around the world, it's like, well, digital transformation is great. All my business managers, all the business units are telling me we need to digitalize those processes. We need to digitalize this, that, and this. All good. But do it in a secure manner, man. Like, it's that simple, right? If you design a new digitalization, if you have a digitalization project, security should be sitting with those folks that are going to implement, or they're brainstorming on how that process will look like. Because if you don't do it, bad things tend to happen. That's why I say information is a new currency, right? It's that simple. If I have information, I can rule the world. And why is that? It's simple. The weakest link is always the human, right? You can have the best technology, you can have the best processes. If you don't train your folks, you're out of business, right? And it's always a combination of those trees, right? It's the process, it's the technology, and the human part of it, right? I tend to see CISOs or CTOs telling me, well, just tell us what we need in terms of technology, we buy it, we implement it, and then we're good. That's not the case. You need to understand first, what do you have? CISOs tend to say, oh, well, we have this, 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 and this. And I'm like, great. Did you configure them? Oh, I'm not sure, but we just bought them, so I hope our guys did it. Right? And then also we start seeing, oh, well, we have that AV and that AV. And I'm like, why do you have two AVs? Well, I don't know, but the security vendor came in and said, well, this is good, and the other one said, this is good. So you really need to assess your environment first in order to really have a plan in place. And with the best technology, really the best of the best, right? You will always have this weakest link, the human, because it's simple, based on three things. It's free, awesome. Let's try it out what it is. Let's use it, right? Ignorance. My most favorite one, what I'm seeing in particular in the market I'm responsible for, is like, come on, this can't happen to me, right? No way I get hacked. Or for smaller organizations, I have nothing of value, so why should a hacker care? And the last one is trust. I just trust what I see, right? I trust because, for example, I got an email that looks like it comes from a manager. So it must be true, right? I mean, if I don't respond to that email, my manager will come to me and ask why I'm not responding to his emails, right? So I just trust blindly to what I see on the web, if I visit websites, as well as on the emails, as well as sometimes with USB sticks. You see on the other side a couple of examples. And again, for most of us, probably it's like, yeah, of course, right? Why should the email from Microsoft look like that, right? There's no logo. The domain, if you're looking carefully, it's not outlook.com, but it's more out1ook.com, right? So we get that. The business side don't, right? Because they see, all right, Microsoft Outlook sends an email. Oh, there's a link, and my password is expired, so I better reset my password, right? I got an email from Twitter, or maybe in the other case, it's more like Tweaker, right? And it must be true. Maybe Twitter did a typo. Can happen, right? It's human beings. The point is, it's not the user's fault, because at this point, attacks are so sophisticated that our average user will just not see the difference between a legitimate website, email, USB they should really get. But that's the whole reason why we need to help our users having the right technology in combination with processes and end-user training. If you look into the amount of data that's floating through social networks, it's just mind-blowing, right? Every 30 seconds, there are 1.6 million posts on Facebook. 1.6 million posts. Like, I can't even imagine, like, if I would be friend with all of them, my news feed, like, probably would be like, and it won't stop, right? Because it's 1.6 million posts every 30 seconds. LinkedIn has around 460 million active users, right? And 6,000 tweets every second. Like, just imagine, like, 6,000, 6,000, 6,000, 6,000. It just goes on and on and on. It's great from a, let's say, from a society standpoint, because we're getting so many information. We share with our friends, with our family. Out of suddenly, you notice, oh, well, I have this cousin, back cousin I never talked to. Let's connect. It's all great on the good side. But of course, hackers also noticed that there's a lot of data that they can leverage for their attacks. So that's why information is a new currency. Because if you look on the left side, from a consumer perspective, from the consumer social networks, right, what does the average user do? They keep updating their profile, right? Oh, let's check in. I'm at Cheesecake Factory. Let's check in. Nice. Let's take a picture of the food before I start eating, even though it gets cold. Nobody noticed yet. So we know the favorite dishes, because if I tend to see, I don't know, my dear friend eating buffalo wings every second day, I kind of know that his favorite food is buffalo wings at the Cheesecake Factory. We chat. We use the Messenger. We use WhatsApp and all those Messenger applications in order to stay connected with friends and family. Anyone ever read the terms and conditions of WhatsApp? It's pretty cool. You should read it. Not sure if most of you will still use it, but you should read it. Particularly on the point of who owns the data the second you press send. And, of course, playing games, right? Candy Crush, I don't know what Clash, Soda Clash, Peter Clash, so many Clash. I see Clash everywhere. Oh, and Farm World. Let's not forget Farm World. I learned about Farm World from my niece. I was like, what are you doing? Oh, I'm farming. I'm like, what? Go out, play. But we use that, right, because this has become our new social life for whatever reason. Because people don't like to go out in the physical world. We are afraid, so let's stay in the digital world and let's share information. All that information we used to share only with our closest friends are now publicly available to the whole world. Because who of you really check the privacy settings on your social network? 1, 2, maybe 10%. Let's be nice, 15% of the room did check the privacy settings of the social networks. On the commercial side, so companies, they love it to run surveys. Really direct surveys to understand what are their customers' emotions, how do they think about certain products, and they use that sometimes even to do targeted campaigns to test new products coming up, right? They will be like, oh, we're thinking about this, you're selected. What do you think? How should we do it? Which color should we take? All that information is floating around the commercial, like the professional networks. They advertise, of course, right? Paid media is a big thing. And for the digital natives, many of them have started having social support over the social networks, right? And P.S., you should leverage those support channels because you tend to get what you want way easier when millions of people are watching that support conversation versus when you call them. It happened to me many times. I'm like, can I have this? No, sir, you cannot have this. OK, no problem. Dear X, Y, and Z, I'm so frustrated with the support experience I have been seeing. Not happy. # lame. Send. Of course we will do that for you. No problem, sir. Worth a try. But what does all that information mean on the other side? On the consumer side, hackers get the information of the contacts, the contact list, locations, where did you check in, right? Birthday, when is your birthday? Favorite food, favorite movie, favorite place for vacation, hobbies. It's so cool. So anyone notice a pattern around those topics? When you do a password reset, what are the questions you usually enter? Which school did you went on? Check, because I have all my CV on Facebook. Great. Birthday? Check. Mother's maiden name? For sure I shared it once on Facebook. What else? Hobby? Favorite food? Which team do you support? Right? What's your favorite sport? What's your favorite exercise? Is it soccer? Is it American football? Right? What is it? Right? All that information are just floating around. All you need is crawling the internet, get that data, and then you can reset the password easily. Because people just don't check the privacy settings of their social networks. On the commercial side, hackers understand the business strategy. What is this really, this hacker, as well this organization is going after? What are the industries this company is involved or planning to get involved? Maybe even what are the upcoming products? Like what is the direction the engineering team wants to take on certain products? And the best around social support, like social network support. People tend to do mistakes when they do those social network support. And it's typically not the organization's fault who set it up. Because at one point, this person will put in their, I don't know, their customer ID, their ticket ID, or whatnot, not as a direct message on Twitter, but share it publicly, right? Some organizations, they delete it, right? And then they send a direct message saying, hey, you did something, you shouldn't do it really because it's not really secure. And then you can do it again. But at one point, you can just go on Twitter and search for any organization and do an in-text search on customer IDs or whatnot, and you will start finding them, right? And then you combine that data, right? You combine the informations you're getting, and that's why information is a new currency. So let me show you how easy it is to search the web for data. And I need to be careful to not open certain files, because I don't want to embarrass probably some of the companies that are in this room. So my browser of choice for this is google.com, and simply because it doesn't work on Bing, which I am happy about. All right. So the power of search engines is phenomenal. And the reason for that is you can find everything. For a consumer, that's great. For a hacker, it's even better. Because you have certain filters that are supposed to make your life easier when you start searching the web. For example, when you want to buy a new black dress, you just type in black dress and the brand, and you will find just the right dress you want. If you want a shirt, a white shirt, button shirt, you type it in, and you find it. Let's use it for something bad. So for example, I want to filter only for websites from governments, .gov. And I'm very interested on passwords, so I'm searching for any government website that has a name, like that uses a password somewhere. But that could be quite a lot of data. So I filter even further and say, you know what, for sure, someone in IT once shared by accident an Excel file. So I'm searching for government websites that contains password in the syntax within an Excel file. It's so cool. Hit enter. And now I'm not going to open those files, right? But you can play around with this at home or on your laptops, whatnot, right? It's just amazing what the level of information floating just around the internet, right? And it's so easy. Like it didn't take me not even a minute to type in that thing to get that information. I could also change it to emails, MSGs. Oh, that's good. I can enter, let's say, we can do also a combination. Let's say we want exchange information. Oh. Any volunteers, any company? No? Damn. All right. Yeah, this one looks nice. User statistics. The other day I had from one government, it was the supplier chain, it's a supply chain agreement, the master file, list of all the suppliers with their IDs. You just need to know how to filter. That was it, right? It's so easy to find the data because it's just floating in the internet, because people don't know about stuff like information protection, Windows information protection, Azure information protection, classifying data, right? What is corporate data? What is private data, right? And frankly, like, there's no point not using that technology because it's there. It's there to use, and many of you in particular have already the licenses. It's like, oh, well, I have a Ferrari, but I don't want to use it. I'm just going to look at it. It's such a beauty. I'm never going to drive it. That's like typical situation right now I'm seeing, because you paid already for the Ferrari. Just use it, man. Enjoy it. Like, if I would have a Ferrari, I would drive it every day. I probably would be on stage with the Ferrari. But I'm not Brad Anderson, and it's not, I think he did it Ignite 3 years ago? Yeah, he came with a BMW i8, I think, on stage. Maybe one day, so come again in 5 years, 6 years, maybe I'm a CVP at that point, and I can do that stuff. All right. Other things that are interesting is if you want to really target an attack to a certain individual. And particularly Erdal and I, we learned our lesson. I think it was a tech ad back then in Australia, where we asked someone and say, any volunteers? And there was this person said, me. And then we found out too much data. And then he complained to the Ignite team, tech ad team, on stage. Long story short, we were in a room, we had to apologize, we had to do some agreements to make it up. So that's why, surprisingly, I will use Erdal as my victim today. So let me just duplicate my screen now, hoping it works. Yep. So what you're seeing here is Maltego. Maltego is a tool, essentially, that you can leverage in order to crawl many different transformers, so data points for certain informations. And you can, for example, start by an individual name, by an email address, by a company name, IP address. Really, there is no limit on how you can start that thing. So what I would do now is essentially, I start with a person, and I will zoom in a second. Just let me type in Erdal. So I got my dear friend Erdal's name here, and let me run all the transformers. So I'm crawling for everything about Erdal. Let's wait just a few seconds. So what you're seeing here, whoop, just continues. All right. Let's wait a bit. Yeah. OK. So as you can see, Erdal is really not active in the web. Right? He only has 2, 4, 6, 8. Well, there are around 9 Twitter accounts with the same name. That could be a coincidence, of course. Or otherwise, he's maybe creating more followers for himself. I don't know. I can see one Twitter account that has a picture of his son. Great. And I see several email addresses. Some of them I personally know they are true from Erdal. I see websites where he's like the owner. For example, this one, I think it's your website, erdalesquare.com. right? And then I see he has certain profiles on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and so on. And I can just, no Tinder, yes. Bravo. He has a different account for that one. Smart. By the way, this is a live stream, Erdal, so I hope your wife is not listening. If you do, Arzu, we love you. OK. So, and then you really can just continue, right? If you say, for example, oh, OK, I got interested on his social life. I can run now more transformers, for example, on his Twitter accounts to understand his affiliations. For example, what are the like the Twitter handles Erdal is following? I can look into the emails. I can search for publicly available email threads based out of his email account. There's no limit what you can do with technologies like this, right? I would recommend, for example, use a tool like Maltego or others and just search for your own name. Kind of interesting to see how much information is just publicly available, right? And this is just the community edition, right? This has just a few transformers. There is also the commercial edition with like endless of transformers and whatnot. OK. Let me go back here. And this one. So let's look into the art of attacks. Once it works there. Nope. That's the other way around. Let's share it again. That's better. So what is important to understand, really, there are 3 different approaches to social engineering that an activist is using. There's human-based social engineering, computer-based, and mobile, right? So what are the differences? When you look into human-based social engineering, it's really about this manipulating someone. For example, putting pressure on someone, right? Getting on the phone and say, I'm the executive assistant of X, Y, and Z. I need this information immediately because John is going to a meeting and he needs it now, otherwise you're fired. That's human-based social engineering. Maybe some of you saying, that can't be true. Like, who's giving information like that out? It turns out, depending on how you ask and which words you use, it triggers certain things in your brain. You will just do it. For example, if you use the word because, it's very likely that you will just do it because it triggers something in your brain. And I'm not a psychologist or whatever, but I read about it, saying that 95% of the time, if a person, for example, wants to skip in line and they use this word because, they will just let her go or him go. It's like, oh, can I just print this because I'm running late for a meeting? 95% of the time, you will be like, OK, I'm feeling guilty for her or him. Let her go, right? Skip line. So it's really about the words you're using. It's like just trigger stuff in your brain. On the computer side, it's really like all the things, for example, I've been showing you already, right? It's building this exploit and then getting it on the machines. And we will go into detail more on this. And the mobile side. Mobile is nice, particularly on certain operating systems, right? Basically, you take a legitimate application, download, repackage it with your exploits, push it to another store, and just wait till someone downloads it, right? It looks legitimate, this application, and all they wait is a username, password, authentication prompt. The user types it in, and that information goes straight to the activist, and then they start leveraging the information that's available on the smartphone. With any social engineering attack, it starts with research, right? It starts with the research of that individual or of that company or organization, right? They're really trying to get as much as possible information from the web in order to have this really targeted email ready to manipulate that person in order to get that, what they are chasing for. Once they have done the research, they target that person. And that's a really important point, because what, like on the good side, let's say, what people tend to say is like, okay, like I have this checklist, right? I have AV, I have firewall, I have this, this, and this, right? Hackers don't think like that. Hackers think in graphs. So they will not try to attack most of the time the CEO or whatnot. They will try to find this weakest person in the organization, in the hierarchy. Maybe it's a seller, maybe it's a guy in the mailroom, because what all of those individuals in that organization have in common is they have an identity. They have an identity within that organization, and if I compromise that identity, I can just do a lateral movement into the crown jewels, so to speak, of that organization. Then they establish trust, right? So very sophisticated attacks we start seeing, maybe they start with Facebook, right? So they create this nice profile of a good-looking man because they were trying to chase this nice head of sales manager, and they start having this conversation, right? And they're like, oh, you look so cute, how are you doing, et cetera, et cetera. And they don't use that chat the first time, not the second time when they are having the conversation. Maybe the guy even makes some promises, like, let's talk again at 4 p.m. tomorrow, right? Just to build trust. And at one point, they will misuse that trust, right? At one point, the infiltration will start. This can happen within a day, within a month, or even sometimes after a year, right? Depending on how big that cyber attack is going to be within that organization. Let's look into how that really looks like in real world. So I got a couple of examples here. Let me just close those. So what you're seeing here is the Kali Linux. It's just basically a Linux distribution that has a bunch of tools available for forensic use. Forensic use. Including one of my favorites, which is the social engineering toolkit. It's basically a candy store for people like me. So let's start it. And then you have the choice, right? It's like going to a restaurant and then the server asks you, what would you like today, right? Do you want to have a social engineering attack? You want to do penetration testing? I go for social engineering attack, so press 1. And then it will ask me, how would you like the steak to be prepared? At one point, 3, 2, 1, there you go. We have 11 choices for you. Do you want to do a spear phishing attack? Do you want to do a website attack? Do you want to create your own payload and a listener, right? In that case, let's say I want to have a website attack. Again, different flavors available. If I want to use a Java applet attack, Metasploit browser. If I want to steal credentials, like let's say I want to build a fake social media portal, right? It's all there. It just takes a couple of seconds to create it. So I'm interested in the Metasploit browser exploit method, set 2. Then I have 3 options. Web templates, so they were so kind and have already 4 options available. It's all preloaded. It says Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Google.com, right? So I can just press one button and it creates this fake website. But I can also do a site cloner. For example, if I want to have a more sophisticated attack, I clone the website of that organization, or specifically the area that has username and password prompt. Press 1. It asks me if I have port forwarding or not. Let's say no in this small demo environment. The next point should be asking for my IP address. 10.5.98.153. Yep, and then you have those 5 options. Java required, Google, Facebook, Twitter, Yahoo.com. So let's say I want Twitter. Choose the exploit you would like to serve today. Let's say 43. It's an IE vulnerability. And the most important part here is all of them are patched. You just need to stay current. Let's do a reverse TCP. Yes, I want to use the default port. So now it's preparing the web server that looks like, I think I selected Twitter for me. Yep, Twitter is up and running. And let's make it more interesting. Let's combine it with a phishing attack, right? Because I need to make sure people visit this fake website now. And I'm just going to show you it here for an example. So I prepared this one. We noticed a recent password reset for your account. That's my Twitter handle, right? It looks legit. My most favorite sentence is what I did here. How do I know an email is from? How do I know an email is from Twitter? Verify the sender email as Twitter security team. I put that in myself. Your browser will redirect you to a secure authentication portal that can only be accessed by you. Of course, because I'm in the corporate network, and that's a private IP address in that range. So if someone else tries it, there's no access to it. Right? I could also enter the IP address here, because then the average user will be like, oh, wow, that's a secure website only for me. That's why there's not even a domain name. Right? It happens. And the reset your password now is just a website, like a redirect to the fake web server. So if I would press this now, I would go into this lovely new Twitter portal, enter my username and password, which I'm not going to do now because that's my account, and everybody could use my Twitter account moving forward. It took roughly 2 minutes to do this, right? It's that easy. Let me show you one more example. And this example is interesting because it involves myself. So I think it was Tuesday, I got an email from my manager saying that he just transferred money to my bank account. All I have to do is open a Word document and enable a macro. Now, we laugh, but I wanted to show you this because typically what I tend to see in presentation is like, someone shows something, and at one point, someone will say, well, I don't think it's true. I mean, this looks so easy, and so on. But no, this happened to me, and I'm going to show you exactly this email. And the interesting thing is why I know that this was a targeted attack on Microsoft. There's only one time where someone could, like one place on the web where someone can correlate my name with my manager's name. And that was when I moved from Seattle to Germany, when I joined the German team. And when there was this press announcement saying that I'm the new guy in Microsoft Germany and so on, and that Markus Nitschke is my manager. So there's only one place, which is the Microsoft Newsroom, the official public relations channel, where someone could find that information. So let me show you. So the first thing, people see it's real. Microsoft Newsroom, Milad Aslaner. OK, quite a few stuff about me. Let's combine it with my manager. There you go. Power of search. I love it. And for those of you who speak German, you will see, so basically it says Microsoft Germany, the Windows and devices team has some changes in the organization. Robin, my new boss, is joining, replacing Oliver, blah, blah, blah. Markus Nitschke, new head of Windows commercial business. And down here, Milad Aslaner replacing Andre as the new senior product manager for Windows and cybersecurity. It's the only place where this ever showed up. Now, let me go here. Of course, I had to hide some of the other emails, so it's a different folder now. So as you can see here, it's supposed to come from Markus Nitschke, which is good, right? Looks legit for an average user. But I got curious because I'm pretty sure co.lampasses.tx.us is not a Microsoft official domain. Pretty sure about that. And then on the positive side, by the way, I had to move that up from the spam folder. So Office 365 detected that. It says in German, and like the German is accurate, like so there's no real typos or so. Weird that there is a HTML syntax here. Anyway, it says here invoice details, right? And if I click on it, I get my money essentially. Also curious, like why would my manager send me privately money? I don't know, like I'm good, right? And of course, to make it a bit more legit, his real email address with best regards markusnitschke@microsoft.com. So I couldn't resist. Being in this security profession, I just couldn't resist. And I wanted to know more about this. So I moved it from spam to the inbox. A couple of alerts triggered. Had to explain a couple of people at Microsoft IT why I'm doing this. Got a slap on my hand as well. At least in the virtual world, it was an email. And then I said, OK, let's download this thing. All right, so this is the one. It says invoice details with a fake ID, let's say. And let's open it. All right. So official Office logo, check. This document is protected. That's so good, right? Protection is so important in today's world. I keep saying that every day. And then there are only 3 steps I need to take in order to get finally the money my manager sends me secretly from Microsoft. I open the document. I enable editing, which is enabling the macro on the top side. And that's it. Magic happens. I get money. Cool, huh? Anyone got so easy money from their manager? I didn't. Because when I asked him, he's like, did you send me money? He's like, why would I do that? You get paid by Microsoft, not by me. If I would do that now, enabling that thing, it will do a nice command and control. It will connect, by the way, we did a reverse engineering on this. It connects to a server in Russia and trying to load some payloads on my machine. Cool, huh? Which I'm not going to do because that's my corporate machine, and I already got my hand slapped once by Microsoft IT. But this is just another example that this stuff I'm showing you is real. It happens every day. I mean, it's ironic that I have a social engineering session today, and 3 days ago, I get this. Yes, it's real life, exactly. No money, man. No money. You want to give me money? The rest is real. It's my best buddy. I keep sending him more money because he promised me $1 million in 3 years from now. OK. And now I think some of you have seen this, the anatomy of an attack, right? So it starts always with the user. The user goes on a website, opens a document, or an email, whatnot. And the interesting thing about websites, by the way, what we tend to see in the past, hackers would try to get to the whole website, right? They will clone it, or they will just inject their payload on a website on the root side, right? But nowadays, particularly on news websites, they tend to pick certain articles that they take over. There was one very big news website where the hackers was managed to load their payload on one of the top 3 articles. So if you went to the main website, everything was legit, everything was cool, everything's secure. But there was this one website, like this one URL. If you went there, because it had a video you're supposed to play, right? So you press on play, and in the background, the payload is loading, right? So we start seeing that too. Once the user has been tricked and did whatever the hacker wanted, they establish themselves within the process, on this computer, on this endpoint, right? Because the hacker wants to make sure it survives a reboot, as an example. It wants to make sure that he's not detectable by the traditional security stack, AV, firewall, whatnot. And then, at one point, it will expand in the network, right? It will do a lateral movement, maybe using pass-the-hash, kernel exploits, or whatnot, in order to move within the network. Interestingly, sometimes we see if an endpoint gets owned, they are not touching it for a month or two, because they want to make sure that nobody notices that that endpoint is compromised now. And at the end, the big end game is business disruption, loss in productivity, data theft, or even sometimes espionage and ransom. And the example of Strontium, that was the phishing email that has been used. It's supposed to come from John Smith, defense advisor at the NATO in Brussels, saying, hey fellers, there's this new link where the new memo is in. Please have a look. It is a legit website, like at least from what it looks like there. When you go on that website, follow that link, it lands on the exploit page first, and then does a redirect to the real one. Right? So the end user doesn't see it because this happens in 1 millisecond. Right? There's no way the end user will ever notice the difference. But we notice the difference. Why? If I go back, let's take a closer look at this NATO email. I'm pretty sure NATO still has enough budget to have their own domain. Pretty sure. Pretty sure they're not using Gmail. That's the first. Pretty sure that there's a spell checker. 100% certain they're using something, probably Outlook, and probably they have a spell checker, right? And I'm pretty sure, even for me as having English as my third or fourth language, defense is not written like that. Advisor, not written like that, right? There are certain identifiers that make it really awkward if you take a closer look to this email. But that's another real-world attack that happened recently. And what I want to do now is showing you how we leverage really all those informations in order to help customers protect, detect, and respond to the cyber threats. And before we're talking about technology, it is important to understand where this threat intelligence comes from and how we have built the TI that we are leveraging in our security cloud services. We use signals across the Microsoft stack, from Office 365 to Microsoft Azure, even Xbox, Outlook, whatnot. All those cloud services provide us signals, meaningful insights on how the threat landscape is changing. We have the Azure Active Directory authentications coming in, billions every day. People searching the web over Bing. We get that information to build like reputation levels, for example, on URLs, on emails, and so on. We detonate certain files within a virtual environment in order to understand how this exploit is trying to move around or how it's trying to expand their capabilities. Right? As an example, if you use Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection, there's a function to submit suspected malicious data, right? Executables. And what we do with that information, or what we do with that exploit, we run hundreds of virtual machines in different operating systems, different builds, to understand what this malicious file is trying to do. And all this information goes back into the threat intelligence database. So if you look into like a closer look into the TI, into the threat intelligence, It's really having like all those data coming in. Then what we're doing is we run some certain analytics, right? It's really machine learning, deep learning. It's petabytes of data. But of course, data is one thing. But the other thing, which is more important, is if you're able to understand what that data wants to tell you, right? And that's really the power of the cloud we're bringing into. And then we leverage the TI across the stack, right? From Azure Security Center to Office 365 Advanced Threat Protection, over to Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection, and what we announced during Microsoft Ignite, Azure Advanced Threat Analytics, all of them connected, right? Because it's simple. We learn from each other within the product stack as well. As an example, if I get this phishing email today, and it went through Office 365 because it's just unknown, we didn't see that behavior before, I'm on my endpoint now, and Windows Defender ATP kicks in. If we understand this correlation, we bring that information back into the threat intelligence. And next time a customer is getting attacked with the same behavior, we are blocking already the email arrival on Office 365 Advanced Threat Protection. And the last part is, of course, our hunters. So we have blue and red team exercises at Microsoft. I think almost every product group by now has those teams ready, and they're really exercising on the code we have to understand if there's 0 days before we ship even, right? And so that they can patch it. And all that information, again, floats back straight into the threat intelligence that we put in place. Besides the products, there are certain groups at Microsoft, right, that they really help, not just really helps making the internet sometimes even more secure, but also our commercial customers. One of some examples that I always like to talk about is the Digital Crimes Unit, the DCU. The DCU is a team of lawyers and forensicers working together to destroy botnets, right? That's what they do, right? It's kind of mind-blowing. If you're ever in Redmond and you have an account manager, ask him to visit the DCU. You can actually schedule a meeting to go and see what they're doing there, fully transparent. And then we have certain more teams that they help on the product side as well as on our customer side when it comes to, for example, incident response capabilities. Right? And it all connects to those 4 main areas, which is identity, right? Because we say identity is a new perimeter, right? You cannot, like, I shouldn't say you cannot. People move around if you want or not, right? You need to enable them, and that's why identity becomes more and more important. So Azure Active Directory and so on is all connected to the same TI. Apps and data infrastructure is available in hybrid, public cloud, whatnot. Like, we don't just say, oh, you just go full cloud or not. You can also pick hybrid cloud, for example. And of course, we have the devices that helps in order to bring that information in too. So let me give you a more concrete example on how we leverage that data. So what you're seeing here is a standard approach for a social engineering attack and how Microsoft technologies can disrupt those certain milestones of an attack, right? From a phishing email, what I've been showing you now, and what happened to my manager's email, Office 365 Advanced Threat Protection is able to kick in and stop this email even getting into my inbox. If this email went through, and we are now at the compromised device or the identity phase, we are able to support with the Windows Defender suite. So there are certain features, and I'm sure some of you attended the other Windows 10 security session where they talked about device guard, exploit guard, credential guard, and so on, which can help you on the pre-breach side, right? So before a cyber attack, to make it more difficult, more challenging, you can leverage conditional access on Intune, which is kind of a neat functionality in order to really make sure if there's an anomaly with the account that the user may not get the data straight away. As an example, if I'm right now in Orlando and in an hour there's an authentication prompt for my identity in Japan, that's kind of impossible, kind of. So you might use conditional access to detect those kind of things in order to block access to your crown jewels. At one point, credential theft or the abuse of that identity will happen. Right? At that point, we support with Credential Guard, Azure Advanced Threat Analytics, as well as with the new Azure Security Center and the improvements we showed during Ignite. And the last step, really accessing data, right? Because at one point, it doesn't matter really why this attack started, let's say. At one point, it will be always about the data. Right? Maybe it's a new patent information, maybe some secret corporate data, and so on, that the activist group or state is interested in, right? And that's really where all these things around information protection, DLP, comes in with Windows information protection, Azure information protection, and so on. This is really all on the pre-breach side. But I said at the beginning, it's assumed breach. We need to expect that a cyber attack is going to happen, right? If you're not, like, let's schedule a one-on-one, and I will show you why you should prepare yourself for that. But in that scenario, once you're compromised, you need to be able to detect and respond to it. There's no way around it. On average, according to FireEye's, I think, a report from 2 years now, it takes a company roughly 200 days till they detect a cyber attack. 200 days. Like, it's just mind-blowing, right? And then it takes another 80 days to stop it. 280 days where a hacker group, or at some point a state, has free access to your network, free access to your identities, and to your crown jewels, to your data, right? Just think about having 280 days a thief in your own house. Would you welcome him? Like, would you offer him drinks? Hey, you're not part of the family. Sit down, have a seat. Probably not, right? You would try to kick him out as soon as possible. And that's really where advanced threat protection, ATP, and our end-to-end solution with Office 365 advanced threat protection, Windows Defender advanced threat protection, and now Azure advanced threat analytics comes in, because they're integrated. They're seamless together to ensure not only you have the ATP capabilities at the email entrance, but you also have it at the endpoint. And if a lateral movement happens on the infrastructure side, on the identity side, with advanced threat analytics. So for those of you who haven't seen that integration yet, let me give you a quick look. So what you're seeing here is the Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection console. It's called the Windows Defender Security Center. And it's pretty neat because you see immediately on the left side all the active alerts within an organization. On the right-hand side, you see the machines that are at risk, the users that are at risk. And you even get like kind of a graph showing you what category of malware alerts you see most within your organization. Is it ransomware? Is it credential theft, exploits, whatnot? Right? You get this information. And really, you can then dive into, for example, into the high alerts. You press on it, you get the information that this high alert has been seen, in that case, on Jonathan's computer with Jonathan's identity, right? And then you could even assign that specific alert to an individual within the SOC, the Security Operations Center, as an example. If you click on it, you get more insights on why we believe that this is a high severity for your organization. You get a quick status update on where this security analyst within your organization is. If you click on Show More, you get more details around the description on what is happening, as well as recommended actions. And what's really neat is the alert process tree, because not only it shows you the current status, right, on what's going on, but also tries to give you an understanding on how this started from a process tree perspective. You can go more further down to get timeline informations. And really, it's all integrated with each other, with Office, with, as well as with advanced threat analytics. So if I go here, for example, on the computer view, I see that there is this hyperlink here for Jonathan Wolcott. If I click on it, I get information on the user identity, and I can even click here for more details on this user in Advanced Threat Analytics. And then it opens Azure Advanced Threat Analytics to really understand what's going on with the identity. And as you can see, it all happens within one user interface, and you will see the products even moving further together along the way. So really highly recommended looking into those technologies, because that's the best way for you to detect and respond to those cyber attacks, right? There's one thing saying that making the wall as high as possible, making it difficult for a hacker, but at the end, this person will get in, right? It's a matter of detecting it as fast as possible, and then at the end, really stopping it. And what many CISOs don't realize or they don't want to talk about is, it's good that you were able to stop it, but you need to step back and ask yourself, how do we prevent the same exploit, the same behavior, not going to happen again in a month and a year from now? Really have this conversation to understand how you can make sure you implement or you change configuration or whatever it is to make sure that this exploit, this capability is not happening in a month from now again. There will be different approaches, right? But making sure that that thing doesn't happen again. So what are the next steps? Right? And to be frank, these are the same next steps I would show during executive briefing centers to any company that's visiting us in Germany. The first thing is gain executive sponsorship. Right? Cybersecurity is a CEO matter. And if your CEO doesn't believe it, happy to have a conversation with him as well. Because at the end, if they are hacked, it will cost them way more than having this conversation with you, with us as your business partner, or with a Microsoft partner, with an MVP, whatnot, right? Gain the executive sponsorship. Cybersecurity is a CEO matter. If you're if you're in a Microsoft managed relationship, if you have an account manager, ask him about the CISO workshop. We put in place a workshop. It's a full-day training, essentially, for the CISO and his team to really dive into all of those areas, from identity protection, threat management, information protection, etc. For partners, many of our Microsoft partners, the security partner, have security discovery workshops where they do this assessment on what you have, understand the threat landscape for your industry, and then build a roadmap together, and then plan as soon as possible a proof of concept for these new security technologies, right, like advanced threat protection. If you do all this in a year from now, it will be great. If not, happy to have the same chat with you all next year at Ignite again. Thank you very much for joining this session. There are certain more sessions. Okay.